Ready? Calling us back to order. Good evening, everyone. I want to wish everyone a happy Pride Month, since we are nearing the end of it. Our annual celebration in the LGBTQ plus allies community, commemoration of the Stonewall riots, which I believe began on June 28th, which is tomorrow. And they were in protest of some pretty terrible conditions for LGBTQ people, led mostly by trans women of color, retaliation against the police and the violence they were inflicting upon the community. It's like important to remember these historical moments, especially given the crazy times we are currently living in. But it is a moment to reflect on the power of change and social justice in our communities and in our culture. Welcome. Let us look at the agenda. I would like to hear a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All right. Some discussion. I am going to ask that we amend the agenda, and I'm going to make a motion to amend the agenda and to remove current item 12C, which is in new business. We are not quite ready to look at bid awards for Parkland Plaza, so we're going to, the motion is to remove the current 12C and to replace it with a new 12C, which is a resolution on the 125 cafeteria plan, which the staff will explain later. Is there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion of these amendments to the agenda? So all in favor of the amendment to the agenda, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right. So we have added a new deleted and added a new 12C, and now we move back to approving the agenda as a whole. I don't believe there are any further amendments. And so unless there's any additional discussion, we'll vote to approve the agenda as amended. All right, all in favor, yes?
Yes.
Any opposed? Great. That moves us on to the consent agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion of the consent agenda? Just as a reminder, we use the consent agenda to contain multiple items that are typically included on a monthly basis that don't require in-depth review. All right. Those in favor of the consent agenda, say yes.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? All right. It's our favorite time of year. It's summer game time. And I know that we'll have some citizens' comments this evening because the summer game has begun. What have we got?
All right, first person is Ryan Kirsten.
Hi, Ryan.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm afraid my question isn't about the summer game. So I've been using the library ever since I was in elementary school, and one of the things I like about it is the staff. And they're always friendly, they're always nice, and always pleasant to deal with. However, the library currently pays $13 an hour for some jobs, which is both below what the city defines as a living wage and below what the market has for similarly talented jobs. I know McDonald's and Aldi all pay $15 an hour. So my question is, the library has a fairly big budget. Why isn't the floor for all staff a living wage?
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
We don't typically respond to citizens' comments, but we'll take your question into account, especially as we're working towards our budget year next year. Thank you.
Lisa Stark?
Hi, everyone. There you go. Hi. So mine is also kind of an inquiry, but less serious nature, more logistics. As was aforementioned, we are living in crazy times. If I could pick up Ann Arbor and move it to Canada with me, I would.
Are you moving to Canada?
I've never been more seriously invested in following through with my HR department than I am right now. I would never thought it would happen. But so maybe, very strong maybe, can I bring the library game with me?
People play it all over the world, so yes.
Okay, so I know it's 150 if you're out of the area.
You don't need to have a library card to play the summer game.
Oh, how about to keep the overdrive account? Because I have no idea. Whatever. One of the primary things I love about Ann Arbor is the library. There's no mystery there. Anybody know about overdrive in that regard? Because I'd still be working out of Dearborn, so I'd still be like Michigan-ish.
You would need a library card from this library, and once you no longer live in the district, then you can purchase one.
Thank you.
Yes.
That does answer my question. Thank you.
Thank you both for taking the time out of your days to come here in person and address us. It doesn't happen very often, so that's very neat.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you'd like the game code for commenting, you can get it from Karen. Okay, so with that, we have 54 online public comments from various summer game players, and we are going to fly through them here. All right, the first one comes from Manya Patel, and she says, I would like you to buy more books. The second comment comes from Marionette Cano. She's on the Friends board. She said, kudos to the Aedl board for choosing Eli Nyberger as the Aedl director. He's doing a great job. I swear that's what it says. Thank you. From an Aedl patron and FADL board member, Marionette Cano. She's been a summer game player from the beginning, if I recall correctly. And this next one comes from Jenny. Hello, thank you for all the work you do to keep open access to vital services for those in Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County. I greatly appreciate the new Narcan vending machine, the tool library, as well as the focus on other marginalized voices in history during the summer game. How do you plan to keep expanding services for those most vulnerable during this time of increasing inflation and instability? Do you have plans to keep virtual access to some programs and services for those who are unable to come in person? Thanks again. I did respond to this one and let her know about how most of our pandemic services are still in operation and very few of those things have been discontinued. Next comment comes from Angie Scott, Elijah, and Josie Berkeley. Hello, I'd like to thank the library for being so wonderful. One small thing I've appreciated as we start getting back to visiting the library in the wake of COVID are the signs you post on the door reporting the Washtenaw County risk level and the date, and whether numbers are going up or down. I wish more public places, businesses did this. Thank you also for the summer game, always a highlight of our summer, and for your incredible creativity and flexibility during the worst of the pandemic. The library was the same lifeline it's always been to us, even when we couldn't go there. Our next comment comes from Maureen O'Brien, one of our super summer game players, and she says, I absolutely love the summer game. I love getting out to places I'd normally not go to, meeting other players, and everything about the game. Our next comment comes from Dawn DeBook. She says, thank you so much for our wonderful libraries with their many activities for children. Also, thank you for the summer games. Our next comment comes from Deanna Lynch, Deanna Rich, and Krista Lynch. Aedl board, thank you for having one of the highlights of every summer for me and my family this summer game. We've learned a lot and visited many areas in Ann Arbor that we would not have discovered if it wasn't for the summer game. So again, our family says thank you and for all the work you do to put on the best summer game. Our next comment comes from Sarah. Hello, would it be possible to create a zero waste system for hold shelf items? So many stickers just go right in the garbage. Thank you, Sarah. I did respond to this one and told a little bit about some of the challenges associated with our volume of hold stickers. Next question, or next comment is from Carlotta Jones. And she says, thank you for another summer of searching for clues. It has been great to have something to look forward to at the end of a work day. The summer game gives me a reason to explore Ann Arbor and to go to places I otherwise would not go, like the Fox Nature Preserve, because, well, if I drove that far down Miller, I'm turning left onto Zeeb Road. That, and I tend to avoid dirt roads. I love the mini adventures and games to get me thinking. Now, who can tell me the name of Jupiter's fourth moon? Depends on how you count. All right, next comment. Good morning. This comes from Jenny Clark. My comment is simply praising the ADL and all that you do for the community. I love the summer game activities and the lecture presentations throughout the year. The past year, I've really appreciated having a small Friends of ADL book section at the Traverwood branch. It's nice to be able to occasionally buy a book and peruse the changing titles. Keep up the great work, ADL. Ann Arbor is proud of its library. Our next comment comes from Amanda Shue and family. Hello, Aadl Board of Trustees. I just wanted to extend a huge thank you to all of you for all of your hard work and dedication to establishing and improving the libraries of Ann Arbor. My family and I really benefited from the wealth of opportunities that the Ann Arbor District Library provides year-round, including access to author events, the Friends Bookshop, kindly sponsored by the Friends of Ann Arbor District Library, as well as the summer game each summer. We greatly appreciate AADL's commitment to ensuring public access to services, events, and information for all. Our next comment comes from the Diedrichs. Dear AADL Board of Trustees, I just want to thank you for continually making improvements to our already fabulous community library. Our family has recently discovered the puzzles and board games that can be checked out and could not be more delighted. Keep up the amazing work. Our next comment comes from Kathleen Locke. Good morning. I just wanted to send in a public comment for the board meeting to get a summer game code. Here it is. I really appreciate the amount of events and programs being put on by AADL. I also love the fact that I can borrow puzzles for free from the library. It's really making this one of my best summers yet. Thank you. Our next comment comes from Kathy Scott. Thank you for making 5 libraries that are a vibrant part of Ann Arbor. In the summer game, I appreciate the many partnerships with other organizations, the walking tours that highlight art and history, as well as the goofy trivia. Awesome as always. Our next comment comes from Diane Bogenreeder, who signed her email Bogey. To the board members, Ann Arbor deserves all of the awards it receives. Besides normal library services, the tools, artwork, and toys add a major benefit for us patrons. Besides the oversized games I've borrowed for Eagle events and graduation events, your summer games, I've won AADL t-shirts I've worn proudly in our community. Your games have given me simple puzzles I've asked my grandkiddos for help, explored walking while learning about places I might never have visited. Thank you, AADL staff and board, for thinking out of the box and your generosity. Our next comment comes from Peter. Hi, I just wanted to comment that I first heard about the Summer Games program from one of my friends a week ago, and my first reaction was, that sounds fun. It's really unfortunate that I live in Ypsi. But then I found out I could still participate without a library card, and I couldn't have been more excited. It's been really fun having a chance to play with my friends and explore areas that I haven't had the chance to see, even though I've lived here for a few years at this point. Thank you. Next comment comes from Susan Collett. I love the Ann Arbor District Library Summer Game, and I'm so glad to participate with it. Is the Ann Arbor Library associated with Overdrive Libby? If yes, the number of titles in Overdrive Libby are very limited. Often there's a wait for many months to get a popular book. For example, How to Pronounce Knife by S. Tamavangsa has a 4-week wait, and Never by Ken Follett has a 16-week wait. Is there a way for Overdrive Libby to monitor the statistics of ebooks, audiobooks, and manage the hold times? Is there a way to have Overdrive Libby get more licenses? Thank you, Susan Collett. And I did respond to this one and explain some of how it works, particularly that the same ebooks that she might pay $10 for in person and have forever, we pay $80 for and have to buy them again after 26 uses. So after she understood some of that, she understood why some of the hold times are as long as they are. Next comment is from Sangini Tolia. Using the library has rekindled my love for reading and given me a second home to do my work in. I would love for it to be open 1 more hour so I can spend a bit more time there after work. Thank you. Let's see, we've already received that one. Next comment is from Liz. Hello to the AADL Board of Trustees. I couldn't be happier about the free Narcan vending machine in the downtown library. I'm constantly impressed by the breadth of services AADL provides, and I'm so glad to see AADL readily directing services, literally life-saving services, toward the most vulnerable, stigmatized members of the community. Thank you for your work for the library, Elizabeth Lusk. Next comment is from Eric Zekar. Thank you so much for being here during the pandemic for patrons and families. We're really enjoying the summer game and exploring the city with scavenger hunt type codes. Our next comment is from Cleo Olson. I love the fact that AADL has a ton of manga series, and it would be cool to get even more manga series from AADL. Our next comment is from Sarai Koster-Stetson. Dear valued board members, I'm asking that you consider hiring and supporting a team of social workers as part of the AADL system. I am a current U of M Masters of Social Work candidate and have looked into the role social workers have in libraries in a variety of ways they can make a positive impact on communities. Some ways that social workers can be of value in a library system include community members look to libraries for information, and social workers are able to provide individualized client consultations for questions that require subject expertise. How can I get health insurance? Why did I receive that letter? My benefits are being canceled. Where can I apply for food stamps? Social workers are trained to be aware of and develop connections with community partners, and so are able to connect patrons with mental health services, housing supports, and food assistance. Social workers are trained with people people experiencing behavioral and substance abuse issues, have excellent boundaries, and can relate to people in difficult circumstances and can help de-escalate situations. Having a social worker on staff eliminates the need to have public or private policing of the space, which makes the library a safer place for all patrons, but especially patrons of color. I would also direct you to the American Library Association website and their recent article supporting adding social workers to library staff. Thank you for your time. I did respond to this one and mention how most of the libraries that do this, it's because they are also part of city or county governments that are already employing social workers, and also mention that we do have some social workers on staff. We just don't have positions that are social work positions, mostly because of the difference in the nature between the libraries and patrons and social workers and their clients, the nature of the relationship. Next question, or next comment. From Jia Chen, we thank the library staff for all they do. They have been so kind and patient with our requests. Our next comment is from Jen Duman. I would like to thank the Aedl Board of Trustees for supporting the summer reading game every summer. It provides great opportunities for my whole family to have fun and learn new things about our area. Our next comment is from Melanie Walney. Greetings, Ann Arbor Library. Thank you for all that you do to keep our community engaged. I truly love being a member and look forward to the summer game every year. Our next comment is from Luca Morris. Hello, I have a question for the Board of Trustees for this upcoming board meeting. Since I'm sending this email kind of late, though, I understand if it needs to be pushed back to next month's meeting. My question is the library considering expanding the tools and materials available, specifically thinking of other libraries I've been to that have had a library of things with tools and bakeware or have had video games. If this question is appropriate for the board, please feel free to disregard it. Outside of the curiosity of a summer game badge led me here, so I'm not too certain what kinds of questions are usually asked of the board. Thank you for your time. I did respond to this one as well. Our next comment is from Laverne Jackson Barker. First, let me begin by congratulating Eli, our new library director. I've been playing the summer game since 2011. I didn't realize it had been that many years until I checked. I now look forward to find clues every year. Thank you for the summer game. Our next comment is from Jasmine Patel. Hello, Board of Trustees. I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to say thank you for the work you have done with allocating our resources for the library system. I've used the Aedl more than other libraries since I was young. Jasmine. Next comment is from Jill Mitchell. I'm really enjoying the Ann Arbor Summer Game Arbor Explorer badges. I'm learning about my community and having fun doing it. Our next comment is from Susan Bond. Love that you folks are providing rapid COVID tests for the community, plus the summer game is always something to look forward to. Just one suggestion. Since gas prices are so high, could you release the badges by area so we didn't have to keep going back multiple times? Thanks. Our next comment is from Roberta Allen. Hi, Board of Trustees. Thanks for your continued support of the summer game in 2022. I really enjoy the challenges and learning opportunities. Our next comment is from Roy LaFurnace. Thank you for continuing to support the summer game in 2022 and beyond. I never knew what a cryptid was before. I just have to say, if you engage in Aedl programming, you are going to find out what a cryptid is, because that is a common theme. All right, next up. Jessica Chen, thanks for the Aedl summer game. Participating in it, and the highlight is of coming back home during the summers for me. I always read so much more during the summer than any other time of year. Looking forward to what's in the summer game shop this year. And we're getting close. Next up, Lauren McCarthy and Carla Grossbeck. My home branch is in Westgate, but thanks to the summer game, my wife and I have recently visited all the branches. Bravo for modifying the Traverwood and Mallett's Creek study room layouts, moving the ball machine at Pittsfield from the adult section to the children's section and surrounding it with computer screens, and especially adding a free Narcan dispensing machine in the downtown lobby. Thank you for taking advantage of a bad situation to make something good. Our next comment is Elizabeth Clifford. I wanted to thank you for your support of the summer game. The game is such a wonderful resource for the community and particular families. We're having so much fun with our daughters, 9 and 6, playing the game as a team this summer, and I appreciate Aedl and all of the summer game partners' efforts. Our next comment from Cynthia Flynn. It's my first summer game without Josie as director. I hope she's enjoying her retirement. I'd like to take this opportunity to let Eli know that our household is delighted that he's the new director. Thanks for everything you folks do, and have fun with the 2022 summer game. Next comment is from Celine Berthier. As a French person doing the Aedl summer game for the first time, I would like to say thank you to all of the Aedl people. Aedl should be a model for other libraries in other countries. The dedication of all staff members and everybody at all levels at Aedl is exemplary, and the enrichment that it provides the community is unique. Congratulations, and please keep going. We all need you. Next up is from Marty Piper. Hello, my name is Martea, and I'm 25 years old. I've been a mostly self-taught artist and craftsperson, learning a lot from the library's crafting program in high school. Is there a process to become a volunteer specifically to help host crafting programs at the library? I spend all my free time beading, crocheting, sewing, and jewelry making. Would love to share my knowledge with others. Thank you for all you do. We are incredibly fortunate to have the Aedl staff and the resources you provide. And I did respond to that one with a link to the Aedl volunteer program, which is at aedl.org/volunteer. Next one is from Christine Timmo. I want to thank the library staff for all the work they put into the summer game. I love doing it every year, and now I have a new baby, so it gives me a good reason to get out and go exploring to find some badges and get the baby some new experiences. Keep up the great work. It's so much fun. Next up is summer game super player and often leaderboard leader, Meg Hickson. And she says, as we are all too painfully aware, this is an especially precarious time for libraries and for many members of our community. The ADL is a bright spot in a time of such growing darkness, and I'm glad and relieved that the library continues to make a public commitment to supporting a robust and diverse community. At a time when stories of censorship are so common, I feel incredibly lucky that I can be sure that my public library will continue to purchase materials and create programs that reflect and celebrate queer and especially trans lives. I expect that the Board of Trustees and the ADL's leadership team will continue to publicly avow the library's commitment to diversity, and I hope that you all have the courage to continue to do what is right in the face of rising opposition. On a much lighter note, I'm greatly enjoying the new puzzle and board game collection. I am happy as ever to see the summer game return. Thank you for all that you do. All right, we're getting there. Next up, Christina Burke. We congratulate Eli Nyberger on a smooth transition to library director and anticipate years of success to come. We also appreciate Josie Parker for her years of leadership. Finally, we thank the ADL staff and friends of ADL for making the summer game possible. Our next comment is from Karen Carroll. Thanks for having such an amazing library system and an amazing summer game. Our next comment is from Reed Elenich. Hello, I posted a comment today for the ADL board meeting. Thank you to the ADL team for creating such an amazing summer game program. We are new to Ann Arbor, and it is such a fun way to explore our new community. Our next comment is from Aura. I want to thank the library for offering more in-person programs. We've been enjoying them. Our next comment is from Audrey. Thank you for these summer games and for the ones throughout the pandemic. They make me excited about the library. Our next comment is from Kan Chen. Thank you, ADL, for bringing back in-person events safely. My 8-year-old is enjoying the Summer Game 2022 and especially the Saturday show. This year's Summer Game banner is nice, and I'm wondering if the Summer Game yard signs will come back. I believe they were available in 2018-2019 with special Summer Game codes. And stay tuned to the report a little bit later to find out more about that. Hello, Library Board. We just wanted to express how much we appreciate the library. During the pandemic, we've loved watching Storytime and the Saturday Show on YouTube. Now that we're moving out in public more, we love attending the different in-person craft programs, pulling great books from the shelves, and exploring for summer game badges. We're hopeful that monster pageants will return in the future. Monster Queen Flumph will be a forever favorite. Thanks for fostering fun at the library. And Flumph has her fans on the staff for sure. Hello, this is just a quick note for the trustees this evening. Dear trustees, we appreciate your time and dedication to the library. Ann Arbor would not be the same without the wonderful programming provided. The summer game has become a big part of our summer life, and we now look forward to it every year. Kind regards, Rachel and Kellen. Our next comment is from Ann Yu. The summer game program is a great way for families to engage kids and adults in interesting activities together. Keep up the great work. Our next comment is from Emery Payne. Hello, I just want to express my gratitude and excitement for the summer game. I'm 26, and Ann Arbor is the first place I've ever had a library card. The game makes it fun and easy to engage with the community and enjoy the summer while still being safe during COVID. I want to thank everybody who put together this extremely well-coordinated game. 3 more. This one is from Nadia Novak. First-time summer game player, loving it. Provides a reason to get moving and educational to boot. And here's one from Kim Borger. Every year, Josh and Jamie ask for more classic Doctor Who. This year, we want to say thank you for all the classics that have been added and ask for more, please. Thank you. And then this is our last one for tonight. Hello, as I sit on the sofa with my 9-year-old playing the summer game, I just want to say thank you for all the creativity and energy that goes into putting together the summer game. It is a top highlight for our community, and even with full-time jobs, camps, and other life stuff, we love to find codes and earn points for the shop. We are so happy that codes are back inside the library. The AADLE, we have a word game that's like Wordle AADLE badge is super creative, and we can't wait to hear about home codes this summer. Thank you again, Elena Haviland. And that is all 54 of our public comments. I think for next month, what we will do is we can have people speak in public, and we will present you with a printed list of all of the comments from the public that arrive online.
Perfect.
Okay?
That was an excellent performance, though. Especially how you had to congratulate yourself multiple times.
Right. Any more citizens' comments? All right. Thanks, Karen.
That moves us into financial reports.
Okay. Your financial report begins after the check register on the page marked 26 in your packet. We are closing in on the end of the year here. So these are the financial report for the end of May. Our cash, not including investments, decreased to 1.8 million from 6.8 million on April 30th to 5 million as of May 31st. This is the time of year we expect that to happen, as particularly now that we've started doing in-person programming, we've caught up with a lot of our budgets that have been running under for a lot of the year. As of May 31st, we had received 100.3% of the annual budgeted tax receipts. That's great because we always still get some in June, so we'll probably finish maybe close to 101%, and that's basically most of that overage comes from our conservative estimate of tax capture. It's really hard for us to really estimate exactly how much of our millages is going to be captured by the various entities and brownfields and such to capture them. So we use a formula to estimate that, and we'd rather be under than over. So that puts us in a good position there. Fund balance activity, our fund balance decreased from 5.8 million to 5.6 million. That's what we would expect this time of year, particularly when you see we spent more than we realized in the accrued tax revenue in the month of May. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But you can see, looking at the chart, we decreased slightly from April to May, which is not surprising. Okay, so our revenues, total cash receipts through May 31st equal 18.3 million. That puts us in a very good position because it's basically almost all of our expected revenue, but I'll talk about one of the angles here, one of the challenges with this in just a minute. Year-to-date expenditures, we have 483,000 of encumbered funds, meaning things that we have committed to pay but have not yet paid, and 479,000 of those are prepaid things, mostly subscriptions and things like that, that will be billed as the year winds up. Our year-to-date revenues exceed expenses by $1.3 million. Current revenues are 90% of the approved budget, and expenses are 83%. So at this moment, we're looking at, about a $1.4 million surplus. I expect that to actually come in a lot closer to $1 million by the time we get to the end of June. All right, so skipping ahead to page 29, a few things I want to pick out. One of the reasons that you can see here at the end of May, if you look at the revenue over under expenditures, second column from the right where it says 1.378 million, that's our projected surplus as of the end of May. One thing that includes is if you look at the top, the interest income is, the budget remaining is $226,000, but that's a revenue budget, which means that we basically are under what we expected to receive from that by $226,000. So that offsets our other income. So we're going to wind up with less income than we expected because of the bonds that the library is invested in, doing so poorly in some cases, taking money out of the investment funds because bonds do poorly in times of high inflation. So that remains something that we've seen all year. It doesn't cause a structural problem for the library, but if our bond investments had been doing well this year, we would probably have another $250,000 in our surplus. So that's just something to point out there. Similarly, it's good to see that as the year is winding up, our fiscal year budget for fines and fees of other, we only budgeted for $18,000, knowing we weren't going to receive a lot of that. But we've actually gotten $52,000, almost all of that being payments for lost material, which is really the only fees that we've been collecting. So that is all as we've restarted our process and gotten everything running again. We're starting to get people paying off things that they have either lost or decided to keep, and that's where a lot of that revenue is coming from. But you can see, again, still is a tiny fraction of the revenue compared to the rest of the organization's finances. And also, similarly, resident fees, we only budgeted to have received $7,500. We've actually received $16,000 of non-resident fees over the course of this year, so that's doing much better than it typically does. Just a few things to point out on the budget, the expenditure side. We have a resolution tonight to do our year-end transfers. It's important that we try to get this as close as we can because we cannot correct them later, but it's a moving target. Like invoices were arriving today that we needed to use to calculate what our transfers should be from account to account. So the two that are already negative over the course of the year is the software licenses and materials, which is over just a little bit there, and capital outlays, which was over a little bit as of the end of May. Both of those things I have in the transfer to square that up, and we'll get to that. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to that point in the agenda. And I think that's all I wanted to point out. Does anyone have any questions about the financial report? me just mention one last thing, which is, as of July 1st, we are moving to a new accounting system. We have been using the current accounting system for 20 years. It's been a very long time. It's going to take us some time to get the new system really, I mean, it's all set up, it's all ready to go, but we haven't actually used it for any real transactions yet. So when we start doing that, we will get that rolling. We'll see how we're doing when we get to mid-August. First of all, if there is an August board meeting, which often there has not been, we will see if we are ready to produce the July financials on the new system for August, or if we will bring you both the July and the August financials in September, which we have done many years in the past, if it turns out to be the case. I'm hopeful that it'll be fine, but one of the things is we're not migrating any data. We're starting fresh. We're migrating our account balances, but no transactions. So one of the things is there's some things will need to be recreated in the new system. So that might take some extra time. All right, that's it for the financial report.
Thank you. Questions? All right. Moves us on to committee reports. Executive committee, Dharma.
Yeah, so we met as an executive committee on Monday, June 13th. Jim and Green couldn't make it, and so Scott came, and we had a facilities discussion.
Great. All right. And that moves us on to the library report.
Okay. All right, if you guys want to bring the slides up there. All right, so today, go ahead to the next slide there. All right, so I just want to bring you, there's often questions, how's it going at the library? Well, it's going pretty good. Our numbers are ticking up. You can see there at the beginning of, this is our door count by location. Red is downtown, blue is Westgate, green is Mallett's Creek, yellow is Pittsfield, and orange is Traverwood. You can see Memorial Day back there at the beginning of the graph. You can also see Visions, the red spike on June 8th. That was the big day at the library. But you can also see there's generally a small trend up, particularly toward the beginning of summer game on June 10th. So we've seen some more door count. Things have been going pretty well through this, and that is substantially up over May overall. It's like these curves were all kind of leading up toward the past 30 days. All right, let's see if that. Okay, go on to the next slide there, guys. All right, so summer game is indeed in full swing. Just to point out a couple things here, some social posts. Never too old to sign up for the library summer reading program. The other comment that we had here, last day of school, we're already elbows deep in the summer game. And then here's someone saying, only took me 11 years of living here, but I'm finally paying the Aedl summer game. And never too late to get involved. About home codes, go on to the next slide there. Summer game lawn and library codes is what's replacing home codes. I suspect you all might hear about this. So I'm going to give you a little bit of what's going on with this. Home codes were a problem last year. The main problem with home codes was summer game players tromping around in people's yards and shining flashlights in their windows after dark. We need to not have that happen. So this year we're making some changes to home codes. There were also numerous incidents of children, youthful children, signing up for a home code and putting a sign on their door without their parents' awareness, and then a parade of strangers walking up the driveway, sometimes knocking on the door. These are situations to be avoided, clearly. So in place of home codes, on July 8th, we're going to launch a new feature we call lawn and library codes. One of the challenges we want to make sure is that we are giving as good of an opportunity to people who are not homeowners or live in apartment complexes as we are for people who are living in single-family homes. And one of the challenges there is that many people who live in apartment complexes don't have a good place to put up their code, especially if they live on the third floor, something like that. Even if they put it in their window, people will never see it. If they put it in the common area or on the front door or on the porch, the landlord will remove it. We heard about all these types of different problems. So instead, there's two things that you can do. You can put up a lawn code where you can come to the library and get a lawn sign and write your code on it, and you can put it up wherever you'd like, so long as you're going to make sure that it's still there. It doesn't have to be your property. It's advised that it would be your property. But it has to go next to the sidewalk or the road. No more codes in windows, no more codes on doors, no more codes inside the home. All right? So these will be codes that are put up next to the sidewalk, next to the road, and you can tell us the address. However, you will no longer be able to see pins on a map of where all the codes are. Instead, you'll have a heat map that shows you roughly the areas where there are more codes than others. So you know which parts of town, which streets to go down where you might find a bunch of codes, but you'll no longer be able to identify an address and go be determined to find the entry on that address. The other thing that we'll be offering for people who don't want to put up a lawn code or don't have a good place to point one is library codes. We will have these new posts. They kind of look like bus stops. They'll be right outside the front entrance of each location, and you can come into the library, write a code on a slip of paper, and zip tie it to that pole. So people can visit the library and collect all the codes from all the people who have chosen to put their code up at the library. So that's a great way to have a lot of people find your code. So you can choose to create a lawn code or a library code, not both. And that will be a great way to have a lot more people involved without anybody doing any breaking and entering, hopefully this year. Okay. Go on to the next slide there, guys. Similarly, the Summer Game Shop is coming. That'll open July 8th. You can see some of the items here. A lot of great new items in the shop this year. We have a metal bookmark that says "Reading is Metal." We have the Saturday Show coloring book. We have a plant seeding kit. We have coffee and tea, of course. We have SG zebra pants. All kinds of great items in the Summer Game Shop. Go on to the next slide. The Aadl Newsletter has returned, now with 100% better infrastructure. We're now using SendGrid, which is a product of Twilio. It's really nice because it integrates with a lot of our other tools, and it is a very robust platform. We've already done an A/B test, and an A/B test that dynamically adjusted to what it was finding. You can see that link there that says, click here for more rare Iggy Pop photos. We tested that being a button versus a link and found that the link is getting more clicks than the button was, so the newsletter adjusted in real time. We've only done it 3 times since June 9th. Only one of those was not actually like a normal send. It was kind of a special send about a service update. So we've got a 23% open rate compared to 17.2% in 2021. And a 1.68% click rate, but that's compared to 1.8% in 2021. But that includes that unofficial one that kind of went in the middle that had a lot of links that did not get clicked. The 2 regular newsletters had a very good click-through rate. So we're real pleased with how that's going. Stay tuned for more. Next up, our tools booking service has launched, and as of 6/24, that was Friday, the service had been live for 10 days. We'd received 27 bookings for 52 items. So that's been going very well. It's off to a great start. If you hear people who are saying that they're having trouble getting their hands on tools for their parties, tell them to go to Book a Tool, aadl.org/bookatool, and they can sign up for something and know that it will be ready for them. On to the next slide there. We've resumed our story times and baby playgroups. We're starting to hear from people they don't know this is happening. It's a hard thing to get the word out about, especially we did not get these in the June Observer because we weren't sure what was going to be happening. However, they are in the July Observer, but even still, we've been having really good turnout at some of these. We had 100 plus at the story time at Mallets last week, so people are hungry for these and they've been turning out. They've been going very well. Thanks to all of our staff who've been working on those. Go on to the next slide. Here's something we've been working on for a very long time. The LDS Church maintains some amazing genealogy resources. They are free to public libraries, but you have to get signed up for them, and that has been the hard part. And we finally, just with, I think, an assist from a patron who may have been connected to the church who helped us, got us connected with the right elders, and they were able to get us signed up, and we are now officially a Family Search affiliate library, which brings access to billions and billions of genealogical records that were not previously available to our patrons. However, there is no remote access. You have to come to the library to use it. You can use it on the Wi-Fi, I believe, and it will be coming soon to all of our public stations. There will be a link on the desktop so that you can use that as well. Moving on to the next slide. Just a few quick events in review. Visions happened back on June 8th. It was a big success. All the vendors, all the community were so happy to have this event back. Everything went very well. Congratulations to our outreach team for putting that all together and bringing such a great event back to the community. Moving on to the next slide. This summer we are hosting a big gay read. Our book is The 57 Bus by Dashka Slater. And this is now available here. This is the winner of the Stonewall Book Award, and we will have some events associated with this coming up later in the summer, so stay tuned for that. Moving on to the next slide, our first big Friends sale at the Plaza is coming up July 9th and 10th. It's their summer bag sale, first time they've done that in years. It'll be Saturday, July 9th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Sunday, July 10th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And at that same time, we'll be also offering Aedl equipment and Aedl withdrawn discs. So stuff from our collection, CDs and Blu-rays and DVDs, will be on sale for astounding prices. So we encourage all of the hoarders of the community to please turn out to this event and move stuff from our basement into yours. Moving on to the next slide. we are doing A2CAF Mini coming up on July 16th. A2CAF is an event that has a very long lead time and a very complicated planning cycle. We weren't able to commit to that for this summer at the time it would have needed to start right at the height of the Omicron wave. So instead, we've planned a much simpler one. We have 2 guests. It's one day. We have about 6 artists tabling and a couple of crafts and some other fun events. So it'll be a mini A2CAF. We look forward to the full-blown A2CAF returning in summer of 2023. Next slide. A Summer Games Spectacular is coming up on July 30th. That's our big event at Vets Park. That'll be the first time that has happened in 3 years. So please join us from 1 to 4 p.m. on Saturday, July 30th at Vets. We'll have the Ann Arbor Aviary doing performances. We'll have Rita Musique doing their Balkan music, as well as lots of fun face painting, food trucks, outdoor games, and more. So please join us. Lots of game codes. Our next slide here, coming up next month at the July board meeting, a Lawrence Technological University architecture graduate program made their project this year the downtown library. And they designed 16 new standalone downtown libraries. And I have a folder of all 16. If you would like to see it, including anyone in the public, if you'd like to see these, let me know and I'd be happy to share that with you. We have either 4 or 5 of these students coming next month to the July meeting to give us 10-minute presentations on their designs. Some of these designs are just astounding. So this is an example from one of the designs that I believe won a Dean's Award at the school. So there's some really terrific ideas, just inspiring and exciting to look at all these different potential visions for what a building on this site could look like. So look forward to that in July, and if you'd like to see the whole folder, just let me know via email and I will get it to you. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Just some quick comments from social media. Here's a podcaster who says the best history is still in books. Every episode of the show starts with a trip to 2 of my favorite places, Aadl Graham and Rat Library. I'm not sure what Rat Library is. Here's where the research into the show's 2 recent Pride episodes began. My top recommendation is Eric Cervini's The Deviant War of the Homosexual versus the United States of America. And moving on to the next slide. So here's just a few more comments. What? How did I not know that Aedl has streaming? I'm one of your super fans. How did I miss this? We recently announced the licensing of a number of BBC literary adaptations, including, as I mentioned in my tweet, the all-important Colin Firth Jennifer L. Pride and Prejudice from 1996. So that's very important content, of course. And I love this. So Saturday morning visits, the kids section of ADL involved a genealogy lesson for the library's fishes, and someone drew a family tree for the fish in the fish tank, showing where they have ancestors in common. And we were delighted to see that. All right, moving on to the next slide, just a few more tweets here. Libraries were such a refuge to me as I didn't have access to lots of books. And then someone else saying, there's such a gift to me as a mom of a busy toddler. Then here's someone who came to one of our letterpress events. Letterpress is back, and they did some wood type printing. It says, good typography matters. Moving on to our next slide here. Someone who just says, gosh, I love the ADL library. And there was a tweet that did some numbers from someone else that said, cruel that an adult can spend her whole summer reading but not have a library sheet to fill in with stickers to document her progress. Clearly not one of our patrons, because that is absolutely something that our adult patrons can and do. And actually, more than half summer game players are adults. It is much more adults playing it than little kids. Moving on to the next slide, here's some comments we received across the desk. Patron gushed about us being the best library and thanked us profusely for all we do. Tells her husband there are many reasons we can't leave Ann Arbor, and the library is one of them. Another patron wanted to note she likes we have the COVID case level and the trend on our masking signs. And on the next slide, this is a comment from Visions. Over the course of the day, I've heard multiple times from multiple patrons overwhelming thanks and gratitude for having Visions and the WLBPD services. Multiple patrons specifically named Katie for her fantastic WLBPD service over the phone and email. From 7-year-old Shahan, your summer game this year is the best. We're glad you think so. All right, and then finally, a wonderful piece of mail we received, well, 2 pieces of mail. This is from the Glacier Way Cooperative Preschool. It says, thank you from the bunch of us. And you can see they all drew their own little balloon on there. Hello, I want to thank you for the ADL seed sampler. My class learned a lot about seeds and the parts of a plant. I'm grateful for your generosity. Sincerely, Kathy Timpson, the teacher. And finally, here's a patron email from Laz Slomovitz of Gemini. And he says, the other day, without talking about it or planning ahead in any way, Jennifer Bird and I found that we had each put on a library t-shirt that we'd won by playing a previous summer game. I was also wearing a summer game prize hat, and Jennifer found hers. We took a selfie decked out in library summer game regalia. We're ready for the summer game of 22. Let the games begin. And that's my report. Any questions?
Wowza.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Amazing. All right. That moves us along to old business, and we're going to hear from Len on Parkland Plaza facility upgrade update.
Why don't you tell us about what the delay is?
Upgrade
Yes.
update. Thank you.
So the steel and concrete foundation flat work went out to bid closed. Through the vetting process, for the steel portion, we have 3 bids returned. One was well under budget, the 2 were a little bit over. We, through direction of O'Neill, we suggested we get through shop drawings before we award that bid, because the steel market's still moving a little bit. Hope to have something for the July meeting for at least the decking, which is the steel would go under the concrete when we pour it, as well as the concrete flat work. It was the recommendation from O'Neill to not commit at this time to $300,000. We just committed to $8,000 to get through shop drawings, which was greatly appreciated that they suggested that, so we didn't get caught up in something with the market changing.
And we've heard that the lead time is improving on steel.
It is, yeah. So with heavy steel, they're saying it's pretty flat. The decking, that thinner material, that would be what we probably have for the July meeting, that's still moving quite a bit. So we definitely want to get that locked down and get it ordered, which I think that's around $50,000 is what we're at now. But made a lot of sense for us to not bring this in front of you for a vote and be tied into something and then it change and ruin our budget. The real goal is to get everything in front of you and approve the whole budget
All at once.
instead of little pieces, because if we do it one at a time and we end up over budget, there's no correction. If we do it this way, we get everything back and then get it in front of you all, and we can approve every line item and approve it all at once.
Great.
Any questions?
Any questions? Yeah. Would you like to start ordering things to renovate my house while you're?
I have that going on as well.
Thanks, Len.
Yep.
All right. That moves us into new business, and we're looking at a resolution to amend the 2021-2022 approved budget. The most up-to-date version of this is a loose sheet of paper. And I'll read this for us. The board resolves as follows. 1, to transfer $5,000 for materials to accounting and auditing. 2, to transfer $20,000 for materials to legal expense. 3, to transfer $25,000 for materials to software licenses. 4, to transfer $20,000 for materials to building rental. 5, to transfer $30,000 for materials to repair and maintenance. 6, to transfer $100,000 for materials to capital outlay. 7, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provision of this resolution are rescinded. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. Discussion, questions, anything you want to add, Eli?
This is fairly routine at this point. As I said when we were approving the budget, we've had a lot of unspent money on the table at the materials budget at the end of the year, so that was a logical place for this to come from. Most of these, for legal expense, a lot of that is related to collective bargaining. Software license, some of these are making sure that something that arrives like today or tomorrow doesn't bump us over the line, because we really don't want to end anything over. The building rental was a little bit about property taxes being different than what we had originally projected. Repairs and maintenance, we just had a few bigger projects. The main thing with capital outlay is a lot of those things were projects from the previous fiscal year finishing being built out. Projects like this room right here, things that had some of the meeting room projects. Some of those projects took a long time to button up, and pay requests were coming in from old projects associated with that. So that's the main reason that those went over. But this is still under budget as the whole for the entire organization. Just these are transfers to the line items as required in a line item budget. questions about any of these?
All right, if there's no further discussion, then we'll take a vote. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Any opposed? All right, the resolution passes. Thank you very much. That moves us on to a resolution authorizing director's contract, which I will read for us. The board resolves as follows, that the Board of Trustees approve the employment contract for Eli Nyberger, Library Director, and delegates the authority to negotiate, finalize, and execute Mr. Nyberger's contract to Jim Leha, AADL Board President, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Let me open by saying that when we made the decision to hire Eli as director, we did at that, you all did at that time give the executive committee the authority to contract with him. I have worked through a contracting negotiation process with Eli and with our legal counsel, Jim Green, and this is the final product and outcome. You saw the contract in your board ephemera packet, but to give you, just to remind you of the broad strokes, this is actually a contract that was very similar to Josie Parker's contract. We are starting Eli on a 5-year contract term, which would then, which the board could decide to, and hopefully will decide to renew. And this contract also spells out essentially what would happen if for some reason a future board would decide, or this board would decide to terminate Eli with or without cause, which includes a severance package if in fact he were terminated without cause. And the rest is pretty straightforward, and the termination the severance package is there, to essentially give us all some stability in a process where we might separate, although obviously we have no intention of doing that at all. Any questions or discussion about the contract? I would just say one more thing is that Jim Green wanted me to make sure to bring this back to you as a resolution, just to make sure that it is rock solid and airtight, that you all have put your eyes on it, and that we're all approving it together. All right, if no further discussion, all in favor of the resolution, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you. Resolution passes. Eli, I believe you have a contract, and we will sign that right away.
All right.
All right, that moves us to the new 12C, which is the other sheet of loose paper stapled in your packet. The new 12C is a resolution to amend and restate the Ann Arbor District Library Section 125 Cafeteria Plan. I'll read this for us. The board resolves as follows, that the Ann Arbor District Library Section 125 Cafeteria Plan can be amended and restated in the form attached hereto effective July 1st, 2022, which amendment is hereby adopted and approved. That the appropriate officers of the Ann Arbor District Library be, and they hereby are, authorized and directed to execute said amendment on behalf of the Ann Arbor District Library. That the officers of the Ann Arbor District Library be, and they hereby are, authorized and directed to take any and all actions and execute and deliver such documents as they may deem necessary, appropriate, or convenient to effect the foregoing resolutions, including, without limitation, causing to be prepared and filed such reports, documents, or other information as may be required under applicable law. 4, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded. Motion to move this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Seconded.
Thank you. And opening up for discussion, I'm going to let Eli give you the context for this.
This is much less complicated than it seems. What this is a Section 125 plan is a flexible spending account. And it's something that is an optional benefit that staff who are full-time can choose to put in a percentage or a flat dollar amount out of their paycheck into a flexible spending account pre-tax. And then they can use that to pay for health care, they can use it to pay for dependent care. There's a couple different ways that they can use it. The only thing that this is affecting is that you can see on the second page, the only thing that's changing is the carryover of unspent money at the end of the plan year. It was previously fixed at a maximum $500 carryover. The federal laws have changed, and the new document here says, and you can see the X under A1, maximum amount as indexed. Instead of our plan saying that the rollover at the end of the year is maximum of $500, it now says is the maximum amount allowable by federal law indexed to whatever inflation or increases come along from the federal regulatory agencies that govern this. So this is all just to increase the rollover from $500 to $570. However, we won't need to do this again because now it specifies that our plan covers the maximum amount allowable from a federal perspective. We would not wish that to be different because it's the staff's money in the first place, so they should be able to carry over as much as the regulatory agencies allow. So that is the only thing that is changing, but it requires a board action. We found this out on Friday. So you have this here in front of you.
Great.
Any questions?
All right. If there's no more discussion, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Great. Resolution passes. I'm going to hop over to E so we can get all of our voting out of the way. Can I hear a motion for a closed session at the July 25th, 2022 regular board meeting for discussion of real estate and labor negotiations?
So moved.
Thank you, Anna.
Second.
Who is that, Molly? Kareem. Thank you. Any discussion? All right. This is a roll call vote.
Okay, trustee Hudson,
Yes.
trustee Flanagan,
Yes.
trustee Leon,
Yes.
trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Solomon,
Yes.
trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
trustee Vanderbilt.
Yes.
Sounds like it passes. See you at closed session in July. All right, taking us back to item D. And I'll just give a little prologue, which is to say, as Eli has been onboarding and now has been in his role for just about 3 months, I asked him to sort of think about what it is that he would want to include and think about in his library reporting, or how that section of our meeting might happen, because it tends often to be kind of our meatiest and most significant exposure to the kind of operations and ongoings within the system. I put out a kind of prompt about, like, it is time for us to get back to that strategic plan and really think about how our work is inflected with the plan. And I also want this plan or this kind of reporting and conversation to really support Eli's objectives as our new leader of the system. So he has prepared to lead us through a little bit of a discussion today about what's been working with the report, what we'd like to see more or less of, how it might move in different directions. So
Okay.
I turn it to you.
Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and throw up that slide guy and advance all the way to the bold text appears at the end. So there's a bunch of things that we have talked about, that we've talked about at board meetings in the past. And the first goal here is, so tonight I want to talk about what a couple of these things are, directions it could go, hear from all of you about what's important to you and what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to see less of, all those kinds of things as we adapt to this to meet your information needs from the staff. And then bring you a prototype, basically, in an upcoming meeting and keep that evolving. We are very iterative as an organization, so we are happy every time. It tends to be, it's like, here's the director's report, moving on, right? So one thing that we'd like to see is like, that was really great, I liked that, or I don't think we needed to see that, right? And I think in some cases it's a little challenging to talk about that right after we've told you about the adorable little children that came to the library and had a wonderful time. And it's hard to say, well, I think we need less of that. However, that may be a good use of everyone's governmental time. So here's some of the things that we've got on there. Of course, statistics are something that we often will include. I have, over the past couple months and even before that, tending to include basically one graph or chart every month. So there's something that we were looking at from a statistical basis. This is not like a data-driven organization. We use data to inform the decisions when we're not sure what the right answer is, right? But being a data-driven organization as sort of like a government entity can be a death spiral very easily. So we try to avoid making any one statistic, such as door count or circulation or number of librarians on staff or any of those sorts of things, be the metrics to which we are optimizing the organization. However, some of you may wish to see statistics frequently or less frequently or more or less or the same ones every time. Years ago, I don't think any of you were on the board except for maybe Jamie. I used to do this elaborate stats report that was the same every month. And you know, it took a lot of time to produce, and it had a lot of data in it, and none of it ever really changed. Like, it was really not very useful. So this is a good question to have. Another thing is if you want to know about service updates. And like, we just had a June service update. We tend to put that in reports. A lot of that is focused among when patrons come and talk to you about things. We want to make sure that you're aware of things that are going on at the library. So that's something that could be a potential part of this. Some balance between upcoming events and past events. Do you want to hear about that at all? Are you more interested in things that haven't happened yet? Are you more interested in things that have already happened and how they went and who they reached, those kinds of things? Public feedback, of course, we put a lot of that into the board report. I know it seems like we're cherry picking because it's also positive, but that is the experience that we have as staff in receiving these messages. It's really rare that we get someone who's really mad when they're not mad about something like I couldn't log in or something like that. That's just kind of like routine, right? We always try to include, when we get a real substantial negative one, we always try to include that in the report. There aren't a lot of them. So we don't want it to seem like it's like a rose-colored glasses moment, just because that's kind of the nature of the feedback that we are fortunate to receive. Another part of it is engagement, like when we see people engaging with our content on social media, when we see people engaging with events, participating in things like that, is that interesting to you? So those are all kinds of things we've talked about before. On the right column, we've got things that I would like to talk about, which of these are most valuable to you. One thing I wanted to let you know about is that we are about to begin a new goal-setting process for all of our full-time staff. One of our challenges has been that the goal setting has previously been a kind of informal add-on to the performance appraisal process, which in some ways makes sense, but then it gets really emotionally loaded in ways that are not constructive. So what we are doing is separating the goal setting and the progress away from the performance evaluation. Now, that's not to say that a staffer who's failing to consistently make progress on any of their goals is going to get a great performance evaluation, but this goal-setting process and the evaluation of those goals is not going to be a part of the performance appraisal process. Every basically full-time staffer is going to come up with a few of these in conjunction with their manager. The managers are then going to sit together and look at all of them, make sure basically that all of our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals are being served by this set of goals. Not that they all have to be goals that are expressly attributable to diversity, equity, and inclusion, even though a lot of the things we do at the library work that way, regardless of if it is a focused project. But we want to make sure that every department, every service, that we are having consistent focus across the organization, across staff's kind of personal goals, toward a more diverse staff providing more equitable service to a more inclusive, more equitable access to more inclusive services. So we can talk about how many of, I don't think we want to enumerate all of them. I don't think we want to list all of them, but we could talk about how many of them were set, how many of them were achieved. We could talk about how many of those are directly diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, how many of them are supportive of diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, sort of get a sense of how much of the projects that the staff are taking on are in pursuit of those goals. So that's another big part of it. Then there's sort of like the strategic plan, which we're fortunate to have this very broad and high-level strategic plan, which means that almost anything can be attributed to it. So part of the question is, to what extent are you interested in strategic plan attribution, as we're talking about things that we're doing kind of anyway, and here's the strategic goals they fit under, versus do you want us to talk more about the ideation of the process? And it's like, well, we wanted to work toward this strategic goal, so here are some projects that are coming up. Finally, we don't talk a lot about the staff as a whole. We don't talk about staff individuals or individual departments, particularly those that aren't related to events. And that's something that if you'd like to see more, it's certainly something we could highlight individual staffers. There's a lot of, out of our 223 employees, A lot of them are really interesting people, like 223 of them are really interesting people. And we got a lot of interesting stuff going on. Also, just sort of some of the unsung departments who many of you might rarely interact with. And so that's an opportunity to include it as well. And then finally, one thing that I'd like to look at including in the library report, because of its informal nature, is there are a lot of things that are the staff's responsibility to decide. All the stuff that isn't policy but is procedure, right? It's the staff's responsibility to decide and set those things, and they aren't board issues. We don't want to bring them to the board for resolutions because they're not part of the board's scope. However, sometimes we'd like to get some input from the board on how they feel about some things when, again, it's equivocal. Most things in library service design have pros and cons that you have to weigh off. It's not always obvious. So I was wondering if you'd see the library report as us bringing you, not necessarily every month, but it being a place to say, here's a question we have for you about something that it's not your responsibility to decide. What do you all think about it? I mean, when we talked a few weeks ago about the fine free, going fees free, and I got very good feedback from all of you about that you'd like to see that promoted in some way, and we have a promotional plan for the fall as a result of it. So it's something that, it's not formal direction of the staff. It's more the staff seeking consultation from the board in an informal way. And, perhaps a non-binding way, but obviously we would bring you things that we wanted to do in the direction that you wanted to see us go. So that could be a part of the library report as well, as opposed to putting something on an agenda which would really only be like a formal discussion or a resolution. And then finally, do you want a time limit or a time limit target? And would you prefer to receive this in advance of the meeting? Or do you want to present it as a slide deck? I mean, real talk, we produce this the day of the meeting every time, right? So it has the latest stuff. But we could produce it a week earlier so you have time to look over it and come with your questions, particularly if we're going to ask you for procedure feedback. So that's kind of like the possibility space as I see it. And now I'm going to shut up and hear what all you would like to see, whether it's on this list or not, what you'd like to see in this time of the meeting.
I'm not sure if this is under your goal setting, progress, strategic plan, but I feel like I would like to see how staff is using the strategic plan as goal setting, like at the organizational or unit level for upcoming things and what things it matches to. So I think I'm less interested in the individual goals, which I think you were talking about before.
Yeah.
And how the library is working as an organization.
Right.
So I'm trying to get a little bit meta about it and think about the role of these meetings and the fact that it is an opportunity to give the public access to the inner workings of the library. And so I'm trying to think about what might be of value to us, but also to the public. And I do think that something to do with goal setting, I agree with Dharma that getting super individual is maybe less relevant. But especially, yes, thinking about the diversity, equity, inclusion goals and projects and having an opportunity to hear about what's going on. You all can shout me down on this. I actually think we don't necessarily need as much of the public feedback in this moment. Maybe having that in advance, something that we can read that's documented. So it's still documented and we can see it, but I'm wondering if the library report, it sounds like you're talking about moving towards a more interactive library report where we're asking more questions, there's more discussion. And so I'm trying to focus in on the options that are, that would be more ripe for discussion. I think statistics probably does fit into that category, like the way you've been doing it. So yeah, and I do like hearing about upcoming events because sometimes I don't know about them. This is sometimes how I find out about stuff that I want to go to. But then similarly, past events might be something that we mostly hear about in writing as opposed to in the report. I do think it's valuable to highlight when something is a particular success or something was new that we've tried, but maybe just a different mix.
I concur with that. I think I wrote down also the department staff features. I think there's a lot that we don't know about, and could that, either featuring individual people could be very cool, but featuring departments or explaining how they work or what they do would be really interesting, I think. And then DEI projects I wrote down, especially the non-programmatic ones. I feel like we know a lot about what has been done that's more event-based, but we don't know as much about like what might be rolled out that is affecting like the way staff work together or hiring or things like that. And then I love giving feedback. So that does interest me, and I like when you ask us what we think about things, but I'm sensitive that to stay in our lane, and you know that for the most part that's not our role.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll add the, in particular, department and staff features. As somebody who has never worked in a library, could be enlightening to kind of see how the inner workings of the different departments work and what the day-to-day and the concerns are and that sort of thing would be illuminating, I think. But otherwise, I kind of concur with everything else that's been said.
Eli, for you, what do you feel would be helpful?
I always want to make sure that you're aware of things that you're going to hear about from patrons out in the community, positively or negatively. At the same time, it's like, if I can't know everything that's going on in this institution, how would any of you? So it's like, sometimes there's going to be surprises, which that's a good thing about an adaptive and forward-moving library. However, I think that the opportunity to discuss things and make sure that we are having these discussions in public, and for me to get a good sense of where you all are on an issue when I'm not sure. Sometimes it's not hard to foresee. In some ways, the harder the issue, the easier it is to see. So in some cases, it is like, it's the kind of stuff in the middle where you could go either way, where it's useful to get feedback on those sorts of things. So that would be very useful to me. I think that statistics, I always like to kind of highlight something because it's useful to kind of see which way trends are going, just in a very broad sense. I agree that the feedback is probably better placed outside of the time of the meeting, when we're receiving public feedback, with the exception of when someone is hitting an issue that you all are concerned with square on the head, which happens occasionally. We want to make sure that we're informing the community that is dialed into us of what's going on, and make sure that you're prepared for the things you might hear in the community. And then to make sure that you feel that you're aware of what's going on in the library at the level at which you serve. So I think that all of these have a small place to play, but it's mostly, I want to make sure that you all feel that you can say less of that, more of that, publicly or privately, so that we can adapt this as we go. It's very, I'm very accustomed to adapting public services based on public feedback, because the patrons will tell us all the time, constantly. So in many cases, the board may not feel the same way, that they're going to say, if it was fine, they might not say how it could be great. Or if it was okay, they might not say that it was actually bad. So I want to make sure that I'm giving opportunities to hear that sort of direct feedback, whether it's publicly or privately, about the way that this is going. Because this is really the only time that the operation of the library, aside from budget and policy, touches the board. So I want to make sure that it's what you're all looking for and that it is a good use of everyone's time.
Well, and you asked if we wanted in advance or not. I'm fine to get it in the moment. I don't know.
Yeah.
Same, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we need that in advance. We have a lot already to work through in advance.
Okay?
I feel like maybe I should know this, but do we get the slides afterwards in some way?
Not usually. We have them and we can provide them.
That, I know that would be useful to me, but
Okay.
I don't need them ahead of time.
Yeah.
I would say my sort of overall hope for library report is to understand like how the library works as a sort of organism or a system at like a really high level. And so like for me,
I think, like while I enjoy this sort of like the anecdotal feedback of social media, like I don't feel like it's the best use of our time in really understanding how things are kind of moving at a macro level. And so when I think about statistics around, like those are kinds of like channels of communication and, feedback. But I'm sort of interested in like what at the highest levels, like what, from a statistics perspective, like how are the email communications performing? How is social media in the aggregate performing? Like how do you understand that it's successful? Because you must have a set of ideas about that. And I think and so I'm much more inclined towards this idea of a set of goals that are kind of presented, and granted, those are still dynamic and they change and what have you, but that would give us a sense of consistency over the course of a fiscal year of like how you measure your own progress against those goals. I think one of the wonderful things about the strategic plan is that it's very open-ended, but I also remember saying at the time that the open-endedness of it actually makes more work for you on an annual basis to say, like, here's how we're living into the plan. And if it's just floating around out there because you just enjoy it being open-ended, then it's time for a new strategic plan, in my opinion. And one that's like potentially serving you as a new leader and, helps you kind of set a direction. I may be in the minority thinking about that.
No, I
but
agree.
if it's literally like, oh, we can do strategic plan attribution, but it's really open-ended, then it's not like, then it's meaningless. And so I would encourage you and challenge you to make it meaningful, through how you set these goals. And I wonder if you could bring a set of goals to us that is like your goals as leadership team that you're kind of tracking on for the year.
Okay.
That could be one option, because I don't think we need to know like that there are 75 goals or throughout the staff or
Well,
whatever.
it kind of becomes at that point just like a performative exercise of, look,
Yeah, like look at all
here they are.
It's like we're working really hard.
Yeah.
But more it's sort of like, what are you all working on as a leadership team so that we can support that as we move through the year.
And as a result of the strategic plan.
Yeah,
'cause-
exactly. And let me just be clear. I think it's a good plan, but it sets up a kind of challenge to you as leadership to like breathe a kind of specificity into it on an annual basis that we intentionally did not write into it,
Right.
because of the dynamic and sort of innovative nature of the work that you all do here. I would not be opposed to single issue meetings as a possibility. Like, here's a really big challenge we're facing, and we just want to take 45 minutes. It kind of lines up with your kind of procedural feedback. Like, we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the sewage crocs for an hour, but that's like a terrible example. But I just had to say it. We haven't said it in so long.
Reset the sewage.
Reset, yeah, exactly. Love the idea of, and I wonder too about, in terms of reporting on things that were successful, is if you bring folks in who were responsible for creating those experiences from time to time. Love the idea of learning more about the kind of operational areas in the library that we don't get a lot of contact with too. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Any of them.
I have an additional thought. It's maybe kind of repetitive, but like, I guess it's like funny because what I'm going to say is that I think certain things are repetitive, but I think like the social media comments, they're so positive and so cheery, and that they end up feeling very much the same. Like they don't stand out as much as they should because you get so many of them. So I do agree that they end up taking time from the meeting but like functionally the message is the same. However, I mean, I think there is some value to like seeing those things. So I think it was Molly's suggestion that they be in the newsletter, or not the newsletter, the ephemera packet. But I feel almost like guilty telling you things we don't want to be in there, because it feels like, what if something's someone's baby, you know, or something someone's always done forever, you know. So I want to acknowledge that you all have put a lot of work into this. Even back in the day when I do remember that you made this like this thing, the chart and
Oh, the chart.
the numbers, and
Yes.
Jim was there too.
And it doesn't have to be no public feedback, but, you know, less in the meeting. Because again, this is an opportunity for us to hear from the public and for them to listen to us, and so I don't want to completely cut that off, but shifting the balance.
Yeah, well, and, oh, go ahead, Craig. I was just gonna say, today we had so much public feedback that it probably feels like we had too much. Usually I don't feel like there's too much in the report itself. I just think that today is special.
Well, and also, you know, to speak to the time limit, if we do want the second, you know, column to be included, the first column is going, you know, we're going to have to make space unless we want to be here until 10 p.m. So, you know, I think I trust that you will find a good balance of all of these things, because I think all of them are good ideas, you know. So I think, you know, some of them might be heavier in the procedure feedback one month, and, you know, in another month we might have more highlights of upcoming events, especially if there's some special things that you want to make sure that we understand are coming up, if things are controversial, or if things are particularly exciting, or, you know, things like that. So I would just say, yeah, I want all of it. I want a time limit. I also don't need it in advance. So I hope that we've given you like enough feedback to kind of get started on that.
I just want to make sure that it doesn't end with this. It's like as we continue through this, I want to continue to hear that.
So during the reopening, you know, the stats were actually really interesting to watch regularly. But before that, they were somewhat stable, like you said, and we didn't really need to hear that every month. But right now, I don't want you to just do away with the stats, because they're actually still rebuilding. And I like to see that. But once they've stabilized, then it's more like every 90 days or every 6 months.
Yeah, I was like maybe on a biannual basis, or even just like annual meeting style, like annual report style stats.
It's important. We just don't need to hear, when there's no real changes.
I mean, part of the thing about stats is like, I'm just generally more curious to know, like, I would not get down to this level, but I'm like, okay, we have a seed distribution program. Like, how are you going to know whether you're going to do that again or not? Like, how do you make that decision? And what, what would be the key indicators for you of deploying that program again, or knowing it was successful or not? I don't need to know on that level. But it's just an example, this is like a curiosity. And I will say also, I have an ulterior motive, which is that there is a way, I think, for you to set this up so that it supports annual reporting, and so that it supports your performance evaluation, which the board has to conduct, which we're not doing this year because we're not doing it this year, since you've only been in the job for so long. And so there's a part of this work also that's about like us all getting to the same place at the end of the year, so that it's not an incredible burden on you to sort of like say what the successes were of the system.
Like here are the 12 board reports that you saw.
Yeah, we've all been tracking on this stuff throughout the year, so there's no surprises. Because I don't think we should reach that point for there to be any real surprises.
Can I make a comment about that?
Yeah.
I really like the idea of like sort of making it a modular thing where it builds into something that after we look back, we already know what you would tell us in that report. That is very nice. But I really want to make sure that I speak up for the way that things have been done here, which has been so successful, which is to not rely too much on number indicators
Yeah.
when, like, you know, deciding what's going to happen next year. Because sometimes I think that we end up asking for that. We want it. I think that's natural for a board to want it, but that isn't necessarily how the staff has functioned best. And so I don't want to push them into a mode of operating for our requirements that is like sort of contrary to the way that they seem to do best. And I recognize that that's a little bit in contrast to what you just said. So, you know, I guess I just want to like acknowledge that we're not 100% on the same page about what might constitute the building blocks of the 12 months.
Yeah, and I'm not an advocate for like a lot of numbers.
Okay.
That's not what I'm saying, just to be perfectly clear. I'm
Okay,
saying
good.
you all tip, I mean, when you do this work, you have a notion of like what you want to accomplish. And sometimes that's, you know, a certain kind of set of inputs, just like work that you've done. Sometimes it's like some of the outcomes of that work. And sometimes you get to even to the level of impact of just like how people responded to it or what it changed. I don't necessarily think it's like about numbers of people. It could be about the quality of a relationship. It could be about the way that you change the reputation of the system for a community. You know, there are, you know, we can enumerate the indicators. I would not want it to be about numbers.
Good, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I think qualitative
hearing that from you,
feedback
yes.
is really important.
Okay.
Well, and I like very much the idea of something modular where there's pieces that come around. You know, we now have a new staff meeting process, which is a 3-month cycle, where we have a circulation meeting and we have a public service meeting and then we have an all-staff meeting. And everybody's invited to all 3 of them. But it's like this cycle that repeats, tends to lend itself well to iteration. Because, you know, well, next time we're going to do this, as opposed to just kind of like being, well, today we do this. You know. So, that, and then there are, at the end of the year, there's no getting around it, that we have the annual report and we have a state aid report. And those are 2 entirely numbers-driven processes that are very prescribed. And that's something we don't talk about a whole lot because they don't change a whole lot. But there's a lot, they are still like major milestones in the work that the staff does. So that's something to see if we can fold that in, build around it. Any other thoughts? Thank you so much. This has been extremely useful to me. And,
Thank you.
We're looking forward to seeing what you come up with.
Yeah. Me too.
Well, and of course we'll continue to just like figure out where we're headed.
Well,
I want more apocalypses. That's
Yeah.
more apocalypses.
I was going to say, when are we going to start getting updates on those things that you promised us? Your future plan.
Exactly. It's like the data breach is coming. AI has taken over our lives. That's already happened, unfortunately. All right. Anything else on library reporting? Okay. Citizens' comments? Any left?
Any more? No, not for me.
Hooray. Okay. Well, it's summer, y'all, which means the sun won't set for another 2 hours.
Yeah, it's wild.
Please go out and enjoy it. We are adjourned.